The Media Center for Art Education and Technology, a service of the Monterey County Office of Education, along with the Herald Live, presents Prep Nation. Now to your hosts, Dave Kellogg and John Devine.
Welcome to Prep Nation. I'm Dave Kellogg alongside John Devine. We're here at week 2 of high school football season, but before we tackle week 2, week 1 was quite a milestone, I think, with a big matchup between Palma and Carmel and the opening of Rabobank Stadium in Salinas. Hopefully, if you weren't at the game, you've seen the game on mcat.org or montereyherald.com. John, what did you think of the game? What were your impressions? Did it surprise you
Not at
how
all.
it shaped up?
Not at all. I mean, if you go back 2 years ago when these teams played for a CCS title, I think Carmel proved at that point that they could play with the big boys. And I've said this again, I don't know how many times, but I felt for one game, Carmel could match up with anybody in this county. I think we saw that on Saturday. The reality is that game wasn't as close as it looked. I mean, you take away those 2 touchdowns that were called back because of the penalties, take away the fumble inside the 5-yard line with under a minute to go, and it looked like Carmel was either going to kneel down or go in for a score. I mean, it could have been a lot worse.
But on the other hand, you had to be impressed with Brandon Oliveras.
Well, absolutely. My only concern for Brandon, though, if you saw him after the game, he could hardly move.
Yeah,
I mean, he was tired. I mean, 37 carries for 204 yards, and that doesn't count the ones that were called back. You know, Palma needs more than Brandon Oliveras to have a successful season or make a 30th straight playoff appearance. And what I didn't see in that game was somebody else stepping up. There were a lot of drop passes in that game, which stalled a lot of drives. And Oliveras was asked to really carry the load. And we talked about that before the game started, that we thought Palma needed to go on these 6-7 minute drives to keep Carmel's offense on the field, off the field. It worked, but there was nobody else that ran the ball really effectively.
Yeah, and they didn't throw the ball well at all either.
Well, it wasn't that he didn't throw the ball well, it's just that, again, there were a lot of drop passes there.
Yeah.
And again, if you take away 4 or 5 of those drop passes, maybe those drives keep going, and maybe it's a different game.
Now, Palma, it just gets tougher for them, or it doesn't get any easier at least. They travel up to Mountain View this weekend to take on St. Francis, who thumped on Oak Grove of San Jose, 28-0. What do they got to be thinking right now? Or what's Jeff Carnazzo telling them to get them back on track?
Well, this isn't the first time Palma's lost a season opener. Ironically, 3 years ago they fell to Spanish Springs in Nevada, and everybody wondered who was his team and what happened, and they bounced back and beat St. Francis. In fact, they're 3-0-1 over the last 4 years against St. Francis in the regular season.
Wow.
So, if I'm him, that's what I'm talking about. We've been here before. We've proven we can play with this West Catholic Athletic League team.
Right.
So, but I also think there's some concern here because I don't think they expected to lose to Carmel. I mean, Palma never expects to lose. And now maybe there's just a little bit of doubt creeping in their minds, like, look at our schedule. We got St. Francis, we got Palo Alto, we got St. Joseph, Santa Maria. We've got a brutal non-league schedule. The next 2 games may be the toughest games of the year for them.
Wow. Now, Carmel, before we get to the rest of our football slate, I thought it'd be a good place to go to Carmel, which takes on North Salinas at Monterey Peninsula College on Friday night. Are they going to be on a little bit of an emotional letdown, you think?
I don't. And if you were there, as was I,
Right.
if you saw after the game how they reacted, they acted like they felt like they were going to win this game. They acted like we expected this, and there was very little celebration. They walked up, shook hands, hugged, embraced, and left. And I was out there at practice on Tuesday, and I didn't get a sense of this game's over with. We're not talking about it anymore. We're focused on North Salinas now. It was just one game. Golden Anderson's talked about this for the last 3 weeks. And when he said, this is one game. It's the first game. It's not the Super Bowl. It's not the CCS title game. It's just one game. We're not putting our whole season on one game.
Let's hear what Carmel coach Golden Anderson had to say.
Arguably one of the biggest wins in Carmel football history, yet little emotion after the game. Was there some celebration after that Palma win?
I think it was exciting for our kids how it finished. Anytime you can get a victory, kids are excited, but it wasn't any different only because of the opponent or anything like that. That wasn't the issue.
That being said, Golden, kids are human. This game was talked about for months. How do you avoid a letdown this week?
Right now, the only people talking about it are the camera crew and you right now for us. We haven't discussed it. We didn't spend our whole off-season training for Palma. We were getting our whole off-season ready to go. We worked last week on Palma stuff just like we would a regular week. We just tried not to make too much out of it because we knew it would be a huge letdown if we weren't to win the game if we spent all that time on it.
And you cautioned everyone, including me, that this was just the first game of the season. Wasn't the Super Bowl, wasn't for a CCS title. Has that helped your kids, you think?
Yeah, that's just kind of how we approached it, and I didn't see anything in our locker room or our kids' demeanor that would prove that they weren't looking at it that way, and so that's kind of what we thought, and that's how we acted.
You know, going back to that game, you had 2 touchdowns called back because of penalties. You had a questionable no whistle that resulted in a fumble inside your 5-yard line. That's a lot of adversity for these kids.
Absolutely. A lot of adversity. We knew would happen, but good teams, if you're going to win games, you got to overcome adversity. You got to overcome the officiating. The officiating never should dictate a game. It never does. Turnovers usually do. And we had to overcome those, and we played well enough to win and got lucky to get out of there.
Now, moving forward to Friday, you and North Salinas have had some battles over the last couple of years. You've had your way to a degree, but I think last year's game was a little bit misleading, wasn't it? Because you were actually down twice in that game, weren't you?
It was a low-scoring game. We got lucky with a couple big plays in the second quarter that kind of extended the lead and kind of made it to where North Salinas was playing catch-up. But, yeah, it's a really good battle. 2 good coaching staffs, 2 good talent bases, and it's always really, really competitive and hard-fought.
Now, over the last 2 years, both you teams have averaged 77 points combined a game, but I think the defenses are vastly improved this year, aren't they?
Yeah, and they've also played a game. The last couple of times we played at then season openers, and you never know what to expect on those. So now we've actually, both teams have kind of gotten their feet wet, and so we'd expect a much different outcome on Friday night.
Now, this is your home opener, but it's being played at NPC on a Friday night. Why?
Our school rented out NPC. The ASB wanted to do a night event, and we're pretty flexible that way, so we're willing to play anywhere. And our kids are up for night games anyway, so it wasn't a big deal.
Now, Golden, you never lost a season opener in 5 years as a head coach, but you have lost twice the second game of the season. Will that be brought up at all this week?
Just by you.
Just by me?
Just by you.
Let's hear what Carmel safety Jack Clark had to say.
Jack, in the past, I think Carmel thought it could just kind of outscore teams, but this defense has a different mindset this year, doesn't it?
I think it's a lot of energy and like game planning well and just executing.
Yeah. Now, Jack, this unit took its lumps last year, but 8 starters are back in that fold, including 6 that were sophomores last year. Has this team kind of grown up, this unit?
I think it's definitely more confidence. Last year we lacked the confidence, and now we have it because we've been through everything.
Okay. 7 picks last year. Instincts, right place, right time, awareness, a little of all?
I think it's all. And the D-line forcing the quarterback to make mistakes.
So you're kind of out there just hanging out, waiting for a pass to come your way?
I guess.
Now, North Salinas puts the ball in the air a little bit. In watching film of them, what have you seen that impresses you?
I definitely think the quarterback's speed and his decision-making.
Okay. Hey, before we get here, any relation to Jack Clark?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, how about Will Clark?
I wish.
Dwight Clark?
No.
Just checking. Thanks, Jack.
Now, what did you think of North Salinas? We saw them. They played Salinas in the game before Palma Carmel.
I thought North Salinas looked better than they did last year. I thought they moved the ball well in the first half. I mean, you take away 2 big plays from Salinas, which was a 66-yard run by Elijah Kirkland and a 60-yard touchdown catch by John Santos, and North Salinas has the lead in the first half. Of course, that's not how it goes.
Right.
So, but I did think maybe North High wore down a little bit in the second half. I do think their defense is vastly improved from last year, where they gave up 40 or more points 7 times. I know they gave up 35 to Salinas, but again, some of that came late in the game. It was warm in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It might have worn down a little bit, and Salinas is a bigger and better team right now.
So do you feel like North Salinas' confidence level is still pretty high?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a group that's been together really for 3 years now. I mean, they know each other. And again, they orchestrated a couple of nice drives downfield against a very good Salinas team. So I think they'll build off that and feel that they can win the ball against Carmel.
Speaking of week 1 performances, PG really surprised some people, I think, by the one-sidedness of their big win over Watsonville.
I wasn't surprised. I mean, Watsonville's a little down this year. They lost 80% of their offense to graduation, and I think Pacific Grove, as we've noticed, has gotten better in each of the last 4 years. I mean, and this is just another step forward. They moved the ball well. Jason Leach had a 99-yard touchdown run. Luke Lowe was very effective throwing the ball, and the defense has put the clamps on Watsonville.
Now they play a pretty good Monte Vista Christian team on Friday.
They have been in the past. I mean, Monte Vista Christian has been very well coached, but they're a little down this year. I mean,
they're coming off a victory, right?
Yeah, they beat Del Mar 42-0.
Right.
I don't know how much I'd put into that win because Del Mar's program is a little bit beat up right now as well. Nevertheless, they won the game, and they looked good winning it. And probably, if anything, it's a confidence builder for Monte Vista because, again, this is a team that's been gutted by graduation over the last 2 years. And now they're moving into the Monterey Bay League Scabland division.
The upper division, okay.
Yeah, so they're going to have a tough road once they get in that league. But, with every win, there's a little more confidence there.
So how do you see this one going? Is it
Well, I like Pacific Grove right now just because I think Pacific Grove's got a more of a cast of characters back. Where Monte Vista, you look at their roster and you say, I don't recognize any of these names from last year. So it's a new group. But again, they're well coached over there. Every year they seem to get a little bit better. And if you talk to their coach, he didn't sit there and say, no, I don't want any part of this league. He sat there and said, we're going.
Bring it on.
Yeah, even though they're a small private school.
Soledad, how'd they look this week? What do you hear?
They look good in the second half. They struggled a little bit in the first half against Alisal, and some of that goes to Alisal, plays very good defense. I think Solid kind of wore them down a little bit in the second half with quarterback Fernando Longoria. He had a great game running the ball and throwing the ball. And Jeremiah Murillo, here's a kid who rushed for 1,100 yards last year in just 7 games before he got hurt. They've got some weapons at Soledad, and I think they're an explosive team. The funny thing about Soledad is they're hosting North County on Friday.
Right.
Then they go on the road for the next 6 weeks.
Wow,
They don't
that's
come
a long
back
time away.
They don't come back and play a home game until November 1st. So they're on the road the entire month of October. There's a bye week in there too, but it's a strange schedule. They only have 4 home games and they're playing 2 of them to start the year.
Now, North County opened against Galileo of San Francisco and picked up a tough loss there.
They did, and it was probably a little bit surprising for them. Some of it had to do with their own makings in terms of numerous turnovers, penalties at the wrong time, and it took away a really good effort from Carlson Naya, who rushed for 193 yards and 27 carries.
Salinas is also on the road this week up at Saratoga.
They are, and Salinas looked really good in their opener against North Salinas. And that's not surprising for me. I mean, we've talked about this team for the last 3 weeks, that they were maybe the most impressive team we saw during that 18 stops and 18 days football tour we did for the video. They're just a big, sound, fundamentally team, and they've proven now that they're a big play team. If you take a look at it again, Kirkland with his 66-yard touchdown, that was on the second play of the game. And the quarterback, Zachary McDermott, he showed a nice touch when he hit Santos really in stride on that 68-yard touchdown pass. So the potential for big plays is there, as well as the ability to go on long, sustained drives.
Is there anything Coach Steve Goodbody is looking to accomplish with this game against Saratoga? Any particular point of improvement he'd like to see, you think?
Well, I think he'd like to see a little more consistency. I mean, they had the 2 big plays in the first half, and that's all they did. Now, we saw a little bit more in the second half. I mean, they moved the ball better in the second half. Their defense created some opportunities, and I think he'd like to see that for 4 quarters instead of 2.
One of the factors for Carmel against North Salinas should be Holden Smith, you say?
Absolutely. The kid has had 485 yards and 8 touchdowns in the last 2 games against North Salinas.
Wow.
He rushed for 82 yards last week against Palma, but he had 99 yards on 1 carry against North High last year.
Ooh, wow. Well, let's hear what Holden Smith has to say and how he's looking forward to this game.
Now, Holden, you played against Palma 2 years ago in the CCS title game. What was different for you this year?
Well, this year I think it would just be like experience and probably even better preparation by me throughout the week. I mean, 2 years ago, I guess I was kind of nervous just going in with like all the hype and everything. But this year I was just more relaxed, and it's like the experience from the last 2 years has helped me out a lot.
Sure. Now, 485 yards and 8 touchdowns in the last 2 games against North Salinas, who you guys play on Friday. How do you explain that?
Good blocking, good preparation, just good practices. I mean, there's no real way to explain it. It's just what happened.
Sure, yeah. Now, this offense has averaged over 42 points a game in the last 4 years. But if this offense was so easy, why don't more people do it?
I don't think this offense is easy. I mean, it's hard. You need to have a good line, great quarterback, great coaches, receivers who can catch the ball, running backs who can block. And if that doesn't go well for you, then you need to make sure you have a defense who can make sure the other team doesn't score. So it's a real process and like a hard offense to run. So.
No. All I know is it's fun to watch. Hey, before we get out of here, you've scored 50 touchdowns in the last 2 years. Now, you told me you didn't know about that. It's obviously a school record. The fact that you haven't thought about it, even though the expectations kind of go through the roof, is there any added pressure on you?
No, I don't try and go out there and score. I don't try and go out there and like just score every game. I just do whatever I can to make sure the team gets a W. And if I don't score, if I block, if I get 1 carry a game and we win, then that's what happens.
I predict at least 20 more this year. Thanks, Holden.
All right, thanks.
So this week we took a close-up look at Salinas volleyball star Maddie Mandan. How are things looking overall volleyball-wise in Monterey County so far?
Well, you go back to Mandan. What was a really interesting story about hers, and I really didn't notice until a couple of weeks ago, that she tore her ACL in the spring. I mean, this is arguably the best player in the county, and she's down. She thinks that she's done, her high school career is over. She's made a remarkable recovery from surgery. She told me she's worked her butt off to get back, and she gets cleared to practice today for the first time. She'll be on the court, and She also envisions playing as early as October, which just would be a big lift for Salinas High. I mean, they've looked good in the non-league season already. They're 3-0, winning the Notre Dame tournament last Saturday without her. But they bring her back, and they just become a real force in our area.
Who are some other powerful teams in our area?
Well, we mentioned Notre Dame, who Salinas beat in that title game. They're going to be good again. Emily Cananan and Aaron DeSerpa are a lethal combination, setter, hitter, and they'll give Salinas all they can run for their money as they've done the last 3 or 4 years. King City has gotten off to a good start for head coach Debbie Hudson, as has Carmel and Santa Catalina, defending MTL champions. The thing I like about Carmel is they've looked good so far, and they're missing their best player, Carly Eggers, who also tore her knee. Their head coach has told me that he thinks she will be back by mid-October as well, which again, here we're talking about another ACL injury and a kid coming back in 6-7 months, which is amazing now in terms of how fast these kids bounce back.
Yeah. Back in our day, that was it. That was a career if you tore an ACL, I think.
Maybe in your day.
Yeah. Wasn't that long ago.
The Monterey County Herald, news at your fingertips 24/7. With the Herald newspaper, website, and mobile apps, you get local, national, and international news, photos, and video. Local news written by local journalists from the largest news outlet in Monterey County. Breaking news online or directly on your mobile device, including up-to-the-minute weather. The Monterey County Herald is more than talking heads and sound bites. It's award-winning journalism at your fingertips 24/7.
All right, we're back with Tommy Wright, who covers college and community college sports with us. We're going to take a look, first of all, at community college football from this past weekend. Hartnell with a big victory over Los Mundanos of Pittsburgh. They were unranked in NorCal, but then jumped up to number 16. Now this weekend, they visit Modesto, a top 10 team in NorCal, and they face a pretty stiff challenge, don't they, Tommy?
That's correct. It's going to be tough for them going into Modesto. This is a team that's ranked 9th in Northern California, but I think Hartnell could be up to the challenge. It will be tough playing over there on their field, but Hartnell is the 16th ranked team, and they had a pretty impressive game over the weekend.
Tell us more about that impressive game. What did you hear?
Yeah, DeAndre Mann, he picked up where he left off last year. He ran 12 times for 130 yards, 3 touchdowns, pretty solid pace there. Obviously, they're kind of trying to rest his legs a little bit and not put him out there too much. Some injuries kind of slowed him down last year. Kurt Straldi got the bulk of the time under center for Hartnell. He went 17 of 23 for 209 yards, but Seaside alum Michael Turner did get out there as well.
Oh, right.
He went 3 of 9 for 53 yards, but he also ran for 25 yards, so showing a little bit of his talent. I would expect Straldi will probably be the guy there for a while, at least until, if he has some issues, but I imagine that they will continue to try and find a way to get Turner in there. He's just such a great athlete that you figure that they're going to try and get him in there somehow. I think the main issue there is it's a pretty complex system, so it's taken him a little while to learn all the different plays in that playbook, but things were looking good. The defense, obviously, only 7 points, so the defense played solid as well. Anthony Smithson, he had a couple interceptions. The guy that we talked to earlier this year, Capil Fletcher, he had a sack. He was one of 3 different guys on Hartnell with the sack, so things are looking pretty good at this point for them.
Let's go now to Monterey Peninsula College, and they had a tough start to their season with a one-sided loss to American River. What's going on there? Yeah,
it was definitely pretty tough. I can't say that it was unexpected. American River College is dominant year in and year out. There were some bright points there for the Lobos. For one, on defense, they were getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They recorded 8 sacks. There were a few bright spots on the offensive side. They're still trying to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback as well. Andrew Ludenbach and James Lovato both kind of split time there. And then another Seaside alum, Joseph Jacobowski, he got 4 catches for 39 yards. But another problem there, though, for MPC was the running game. It was pretty much none to speak of. They ended up rushing for negative 31 yards.
Ouch.
So that's something that MPC is going to have to try and establish over the next few weeks if they want to have some success this year.
Now, you mentioned in your notes to me that Hartnell was the only team in the Coast Conference that was a winner this weekend. So are you thinking that the Coast Conference again is going to be a pretty balanced race?
Oh yeah, I think so. Last year it came down to MPC, Hartnell, and Cabrillo. And I'm kind of expecting the same. Cabrillo didn't get a win, but they didn't lose either. They had a bye for the first week, we're still waiting to see what they have. But yeah, if you have to ask me, I would guess it's probably going to end up like last year, where it comes down to that MPC Hartnell game to end the year. Looking at the numbers, like we were talking about, Hartnell's the 16th ranked team. MPC dropped from 20th to just outside of the poll, but I think they're both going to be up there when it comes down to it.
Okay. Let's move on now to CSUMB volleyball. They opened their season with a tournament this weekend. How'd they do?
Yeah, it was a solid tournament, a solid weekend for the Otters. They went 3-1. They had a pair of wins over Dominican and then another over California Baptist. Julia Ashen, she continues to be the story over there. Of course, the North Salinas alum. She was just dominant. She's already in mid-season form. She actually made a little bit of history there. She's only the second Otter to break the 30 kill mark in a game. So she's looking pretty solid. I was looking at the numbers. She's currently tops in the conference at 5.32 kills per set, so that's pretty impressive. Looking back to last year, she finished second with 384, only to Chico State's Alex Shirt. So I would expect her to be right up there among the top this year.
You
again.
told me she won an honor this week too, didn't she?
Oh yeah, that's right. She was the player of the week for the conference. We just got that in as we were sitting here getting ready. So yeah, that was pretty impressive. But the Otters do have some stuff to work on still. They were picked to finish 10th in the conference.
Ouch.
So that is where they finished last year, so it's not like they're getting knocked down or anything. Everything was really close heading into the last 2 or 3 weeks last year, and they just kind of couldn't keep it up. They did show some promise last year, and I think that they have promise again heading into this year. The biggest thing to me is just consistency. The Otters, they ranked up among the top in digs, they ranked up among the top of the conference in kills, but their main problem is errors. They led the CCAA in errors last year, so they just need to try and find a little bit more consistency, and I think they could move up toward the top of the conference.
While we're at it, let's touch on the community college volleyball. What's going on at MPC and Hartnell?
Yeah, the Panthers are off to a solid start from Hartnell. They're 4-1, the tops in the Coast Conference North, so they look to be in good shape. MPC lost its opener to Kenyatta, but they still, I think that they're going to have a pretty solid season again. Last year they made it to the playoffs, and I would expect them to have a good shot making it again this year.
All righty. And before we go, we should mention the cross-country season also kicked off, and there was a little bit of history in the making for the Otters.
Yeah, definitely, that's right. CSUMB had a really solid race. Jenny Yeaman, she became the first Otter in over 5 years to win a race for CSUMB, so that was a pretty big deal. And right behind her was her teammate, Jessica McIntyre, only a second back. So they're looking pretty solid to start off the year.
So this was at the Crystal Springs Invitational?
Up in Belmont. That's correct, yeah. So that's pretty solid. And then over on the men's side, Santa Cruz native Ben Garland, he took third. He was one of 3 Otters on the men's side to finish in the top 10. So expecting some pretty big things there from CSUMB in the cross country.
Great. Well, thanks, Tommy.
Right.
And that's it for Prep Nation this week. Make sure and join us again next week. Thanks.